So what we wanted Dorothy here to do is talk about the Model Cities program. Model Cities was a project here in the early 60s to basically do kind of what we're doing now, I believe. Identify the challenges in the African American community and then put some meat on that and find some services around that. It was a federal program, I believe. And so Dorothy was the deputy director, and so we'll have her talk about the details of the program. Yes.
I had asked to be able to say a few words prefacing Dorothy's comment. Briefly, in summary form, I'd just like to say some of the legends in our own mind, as a few of us are legends in our own time. The next voice that you shall hear through service at Model Cities helped launched Head Start, Child, Family, Youth, Education, Healthcare. She helped launch the Odessa Brown Clinic, Child, Family, Youth, Education, Healthcare. She helped launch CAMP, Child, Family, Youth, Education. She helped launch the Langston Hughes Community Center. The next voice that you shall hear is the voice of a living legend with a legacy. A legacy in family, youth, and children. A legacy in education, economic development, and health. The next voice that you shall hear served on Seattle School Board, served on the Seattle Community College District Board of Trustees. Some say when she enters the room and takes her seat, that then becomes the head of the table. I'd like to introduce to some and present to others the one sitting at the head of the table, Dorothy Hollingsworth.
This is indeed a pleasure to be here to share this time with you. You know, you go along talking loud, probably saying the wrong thing. You never know how it's going to be accepted. But whatever it is, if they know you and know your heart, they know that it's said in the interest of people. So that has been my concern, that what I've done is been in the interest of people. And I think we just cannot do enough to help our folks, because we have been so shortchanged that anything we do can help. And so when I came to this community and got the opportunity to begin work, then I knew that we had a lot to do. And when Walt asked me to come and help him, and of course Walt, you know, was a black man, and I could see that he needed help. So when he said, Dorothy, will you come? I've asked you 3 times. I'm not going to ask you again to come. I said, how much are you paying? That has been a guiding factor. And we have to look at the economics. And so he told me, and I said, well, okay. But I saw the many problems, and I saw things that we could do to make a difference if we really were to stick to it. You know, we talked about the need in the community, but it had not been identified in concrete terms. Everybody was out doing their thing. Some was feeling left out because they weren't included. It was kind of like the health reform now. Everybody had something to offer, but no sense of direction. And I think we were just moving along. But Walt was the kind of person who would tell you, Dorothy, this is what I want. Now, you may run over his ideas and against his will, but he would let you know to stay within your realm. Now, I'm a pretty hard driver, but he would let me know when I was getting out of place. But those are things that we have to do among us, because we have a lot of black men who are concerned about black women directing them. And so we had to be sensitive about all of that. And I say that because I remember sitting on the college trustee board, and we were trying to get a person to fill Charles's spot. And a woman's name came up. And this black guy said, Dorothy, I hate to tell you this, but I've never worked for a black woman. And I don't know how she's going to think of me. Well, I didn't make any excuse. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll find out. So I said to Charles, I'm going to have a meeting with this young lady and get her commitment on diversity. Then we can figure out where we're going. Now, the reason that I say that is that you can't go second guessing when you're in a leadership role. You need to have something specific. So as I talked with her, and I said, well, you know, we have some black men who are concerned about working for a white woman in the area of diversity. So I need to know from you, what do you see as a problem? So I'm going to have lunch with you, and I'm going to pay for your lunch. Well, you see, what I was doing is tying her in. So she couldn't say that, you know, but you know, she was smart enough to know when we got to the lunch, she paid for it. So what I'm saying is, we have to be smart enough to know where we're going. And so she and I have a good relationship. And I went back and said to the brother, I think she'll be all right. But I'm going to be here. And if something comes up and you're uncomfortable, let me know. So I was giving him support. And that's what we have to do with each other as we move into a different era and with different people. We have to give the support that we think they need. And so that's been one thing that I've always tried to do. And so we have come out. The next time I said, I'm paying for the lunch this time, and I'm going to have you and Charles here. And I wanted Charles to hear me also, so she couldn't go back and say, well, this is what Dorothy said. So what I'm saying, in leadership, you have to know how to protect yourself. And this is what I have learned throughout working with this community and working with black folks. You better know where you are and know what you stand for and be prepared. Now, I don't say that in a disservice way, but I say that because sometimes we get in positions of authority and we think we are the biggest thing out. We don't listen to anybody, and nobody knows anything but us. And so that's when we go into a slump. So to me, leadership requires humility, and you don't have to be overbearing, but at least you have to know that other people have sense also, and not to be relegated to your feeling about this person. So I have gotten along well in the community. And so far, and this is what I want to tell all of us as we work with us, let's understand the other person's position. Let's work to support that person. And you don't have to do it by putting the person down, but we need to build each other up and show respect. Once we do that, then we can move ahead. Now that's what we have to teach our youngsters as we try to get them moving, because a lot of them think, and I look at my kids, but by God, I've been strong enough to hold them in their place. And you know, you start out and you can say to them, okay, now you have to understand this. And right now I want you to know, I spend my time talking to my son, who is with the Parks Department. Well, you know, there's a lot of stress on parks now. And when he says to me, but at least he's got sense enough to come to Mom and say, well, what do you think? And he was going in for an interview today. And I said, well, you don't need to do all the talking. So you let the other person do some talking. And then what you do is to say, well, now, what have you learned from that? So every experience ought to be a learning experience. And so, anyway, we worked that out. But what I'm saying, as we were working through the Model City program, and Walt knew that he was in tight, because he had the mayor, and he had, what's the guy's name? He was, I can't think of it. I don't think of it much nowadays. But Magnuson.
Warren Magnuson.
Senator Magnuson. Yeah. And you have to know who's in charge. You see, I could have gone and said, okay, you in Washington, D.C., you don't know what you're talking about. I'm in the community. I know. But can't you see what would happen? We don't have to know everything. We can support something that's coming out. And if you don't understand, be kind enough to say, explain that to me. You don't have to show any ignorance. Just say, explain that to me. And I think people will come to you feeling that they can make a contribution. You're not putting them down. Now, does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
So when we started identifying the needs of the community, and I made a little note here for myself, we looked at welfare. A lot of us were on welfare at that time. We looked at parks. A lot of us wanted to work in the parks and get in the parks. Then there was housing. Then there was education, arts and culture. These were the different areas, and law and justice and health. So we identified persons that we felt in the community who could carry these responsibility of these different areas. Now we were smart enough not to get those who thought they knew everything, you know, but we had an inside meeting and we say, now this you may hear, but if you listen long enough, just say, explain that to me. Then I remember Walt, I said to him, Walt was an excellent director, and he said, Dorothy, I want you to take planning. Well, now there were at least 7 areas of planning, and I just named them to you. And I thought, Lord, what am I going to do? So I said to him, how am I going to handle all of that? He said, well, now, when your staff bring you a paper, hold it tight, look down at it, look up, and raise your eyebrow. surprised how much information you get. Well, I want you to know I've been raising my eyebrows. So those are things that you learn, you know. And we got along well. In fact, when I had to go downtown to see the echelon, the mayor and all of that, Jeanette Williams and those were glad to see me because I went with a plan. And I said, now this is what we're thinking. This is what people need. Well, they couldn't argue with me because they didn't know what people needed either. So when I said, now this is what we've looked at, and this is what we want to recommend, and this is what we need, Dorothy came out with what she needed for that particular reason. So I just want you to buckle up, know that you are the leader, you can direct, have all of your information at hand, don't go in scared, or doing what we used to call bowing and scraping, because they don't know as much as you know. So, and you can challenge them. So I just wanted to give you this as an effort in working with people and how you can manage. And you don't have to be mean, you don't have to be nasty, but stand your ground. I was telling Tony, when I got on the board, trustee board, and I had been on the state board, on Seattle School Board, and then on the state board, and then when I got on the community college board, there was a young woman there, and Noba Chan and I were friends. Well, Noba had some feelings about her. She was Latino, but it wasn't race. But she was out to be the leader, and she knew the president very well, so she's going to lead us all. Well, I have never decided who my leader is. Now, that person may decide, but I'm going to work with you long enough to say, okay, let's think of this, and then let you and I do this. So you get somebody to support you. So at this particular time, when we got ready to select officers for the next year, she had said to me, Dorothy, you are the vice president. Now, why don't you have election of officers? Because I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Hawaii with my family. I said, very well. So we get to the meeting. They have a conference call set up. Dorothy, they gave me the name, I won't mention the name. This person wants you to call before the meeting starts. I thought, uh-oh. So anyway, I called, put the call in. Dorothy, I know I told you to have election of officers today, but I don't want you to have election of officers, because I'll be back. Well, Nobi, and always look to see where your friends are. So Nobi says, didn't you tell Dorothy to have the election of officers today? Yeah, but I talked to Dr. Koo and I talked to Tom Malone, and they told me that I had extra time. I had another time. I don't have to do it today. I said, well, how can they decide on policy for the board? So anyway, Dr. Koo was embarrassed. He says, oh, I got a plan. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to let you deal with your plan. So at the next meeting, he came in with a recommendation. So he said to me, Dorothy, we're going to let you preside until 4 more months. And then that'll put you here. And then we'll change the policy. I said, okay, that's fine. But from now on, when we change policy on this board, I want it done by vote, and I want it recorded, and I want everybody's vote recorded. You see, so we had a policy then. So you have to see where you're going and establish policy to guide you. So those are just some of the things that come to me, and I just want you to understand that.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, definitely.
How did you, in full disclosure, I know I talked to several people when we were doing some stuff, so we got some of this, but how do you, when it came to the leadership model, Walt was there clearly a community leader. Yeah. Edwin Pratt and all of the other leaders that were there, how did that dynamic, how did they keep from?
Walt, first place, Walt knew that I was strong, and I would challenge him. And he knew that I had the support of the community also. So it was easier for him to let me go ahead with my plan than redirect me. But we got along well. So that's what I'm saying. If you find that there's a person out there, don't become threatened and don't allow them to intimidate you. Come cooperate with them. Now, see, from that meeting that day, Nova and I became very good friends. Nova Chan. Now, she's well thought of. So I had support there. And Dr. Koo, now he's head of the administration, and he could see how much support I had. So he needed that also. So he was quick to try to put this to rest, and which we could have made a real mess. But, and the same thing is true when we were going to desegregate the school district. Well, a lot of people couldn't understand how Ellen Rowe and I became friends. Well, I could see who the strong people were on the board. And so I immediately hung up with Ellen. And Ellen had gone out into the project, and she had made some comments the parents didn't like. I said, Ellen, you may think it, but don't you say it until you talk with me. Well, and she didn't. You know, this is a thing we had together, and we're still friends. But what I'm saying, you have to know where the saw is and know how to go in easy and bring it your way. And so that's what I did. And so Dr. Mobley, before he left, he said to the group that gave Ellen the recital, not the recital, gave Ellen her retirement. Mm-hmm. And he said to the city, to the group, had it not been for Dorothy and Ellen Rowe, and during our desegregation program, we could have burst this city wide open because everybody had an idea. But they were the two that pulled it together. And you have to know where your strength lies and then use it. And you don't have to be, you know, an Uncle Tom. But you stand up and use your strength. People respect you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dorothy, for your time. Really appreciate it. Haven't seen you in a while. You look great.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you for being here.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm delighted.
Yeah.